gentlemen, thank you so much. Brilliant conversations, but if you could just take our seats, because the excitement, if you cannot believe it, is going to get even more for this afternoon. So if you can have a tiny, tiny bit of hush, come and gather your glasses and your cups and your beautiful cakes and etc., from Fortnum & Mason's, and do sit down. I'm sure you've had many brilliant conversations in the breakout sessions, meeting the government representatives, in the showcase events that have been put on, and now we're going to be moving into the afternoon sessions and then moving on to Buckingham Palace for this evening. Now, the next session is going to be chaired by the Right Honourable Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and really a remarkable conversation taking in the real global aspects of investment and the type of investment that really matters, because this is a global conversation. Yes, it is about the UK, but it is actually about global finance. And the Chancellor will be joined by His Excellency Khaldoon Al-Mubarak, who is Managing Director and Group Chief Executive Officer of Mubadala. We will have the Chief Executive of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon. We will also have His Excellency Yasser Al-Rumayyan, who is the Governor of the Saudi Public Investment Fund and Chairman of Saudi Aramco, and Deanne Stewart, the Chief Executive of Aware. So please welcome the Chancellor of the Exchequer back to the stage. Thank you very much.
Here, thank you. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The French pianist Paul Tortelier once said that the reason Britain didn't have as many famous composers as France was because we have afternoon tea, and that drains the passion. And we're going to prove him wrong this afternoon with our passion for investing in the United Kingdom. And what I really wanted, before I introduce our amazing panellists, was just answer the question I'm most asked as Chancellor, which is, how is the UK going to earn its crust? How is the UK going to prosper in the 21st century? To which I have a very simple answer. We are going to make sure that we are a global leader in the industries that are going to grow the fastest this century. And that is exactly what we've been doing. If you look at tech, we've just become the third largest tech sector in the world, only the third worth $1 trillion after the United States and China, a global hub for AI here in London alongside San Francisco. If you look at life sciences, British-discovered vaccines and treatments saved more lives around the world during the pandemic than those discovered in any other country. If you look at creative industries, we heard this morning in that session that Lucy Fraser chaired that we've now become Europe's biggest film and TV production centre, including blockbusters like Barbie and Oppenheimer. Barbie always surprises me. I was dragged to see it by my daughters. I suspect there are other people here who had the same experience. This is all Californian sunshine filmed in Hertfordshire, which is perhaps not globally famous for its sunshine, but we pulled that one off. And then if you look at clean energy, another absolutely huge sector, we become Europe's third largest renewable sector after Norway and Germany. We now get 40% of our electricity from renewable sources. And then advanced manufacturing, where we've had the fantastic news from Nissan doing their EV cars in Sunderland, JLR, who are going to do their big gigafactory in Somerset, BMW Mini going to be doing the same thing in Oxford. Huge opportunities there. And that really is our plan for the UK, and that has been happening over the last decade, which has made us a tremendously exciting country for all those industries. And I think the reason why people can see, the Prime Minister and I often say we want to be a science and technology superpower, we want to be the world's next Silicon Valley, is that there are two very special things that we have in the UK. Outside the US, we have the most respected universities in the world. As the Prime Minister said this morning, 4 of the world's top 20. And outside the US, we have the world's largest concentration of financial services companies. And that gives us an opportunity to be at the hub of global innovation. But the job is not done. And that's why today is so important for us in the UK. And that's why in the autumn statement, I took a number of measures that are really going to make this revolution happen at double speed. So, for example, on advanced manufacturing, we have long wanted to encourage more investment, so we introduced the most generous investment tax reliefs anywhere in the world. In fact, there's only 2 countries in the world that have 100% full expensing in the first year, which is Latvia and Estonia. So Latvia, Estonia, and the UK are now the only 3. That will make a big difference to all the investment profiles that people like you are planning going forward. In technology, the big comment from tech companies to me and to my colleagues in the Cabinet was that whilst the UK has in the last decade become a great place to get start-up capital, we still need to do a lot better when it comes to scale-up capital. What would it take, if you'll forgive me for saying so, Ruth, for Demis Hassabis not to have to sell out to Google, but to actually grow his business here? We want to answer that exam question, and that means big reforms to the way our pension funds work, and we've announced some really big reforms because at the moment, if you are one of those scale-ups, you are more likely to get investment from a Canadian or an Aussie pension fund than you would from a British one. But we actually have the second best capitalized pension system in the world, so this is a huge opportunity. Life sciences, we have introduced a major reform of the way our R&D tax credits work, merging our 2 big schemes, making them more generous. Also signed a multi-year deal with the pharmaceutical industry for drugs pricing in the NHS. When it comes to clean energy, the big concern people had was access to the grid and the time it was taking, so we've made some big reforms to that. Also the time the planning process takes, and we've overhauled that. That, of course, is relevant not just to the clean energy industry, but all infrastructure projects. And then finally, when it comes to creative industries, some improvements to the way we do audiovisual tax relief. The final thing I want to say before I sit down is that I think it's really important that we remember that there is a bigger purpose to all these things that we do. I was talking to Helmut Jugler, who is the chairman of BioNTech, earlier this afternoon, and he was telling me that by 2026, he's hoping that BioNTech will have personalized cures for cancer actually on the market. That is going to be transformational for humanity. And I think another way of looking at what we're all doing here today is trying to solve some of the biggest problems the world faces, whether it's the net zero transition, whether it's personalized medicine, whether it's harnessing AI as a force for good in the world. And I think Britain has always been at its best when we as a country are a force for good in the world. And we see all of you here as our partners in that process. And that's why we're so grateful to you for coming today and helping make this a success together. So I think I should leave you with a bit of Aristotle. His great motto was that the problem is not aiming too high and missing, it's aiming too low and hitting. And I think today is about aiming high. So thank you once again for coming for this very, very important day. And now I want to introduce you to my wonderful panel this afternoon. I want to start with His Excellency Khaldoon Al-Mubarak, who is Managing Director and Group CEO of Mubadala Investment Corporation, which is one of the biggest sovereign wealth funds in the world. He's also the owner of Manchester City Football Club, which means if you're from Manchester, you either love him or you hate him. I won't ask for a show of hands on that one, but he's done a fantastic job there. And I think one of the things that the panel is going to help us with in this discussion is this question, if we want to, be part of this incredible revolution in the way that technology and new industries are shaping our life, how do we capitalize that? How do we make sure we get capital to the right businesses? We have these amazing universities coming up with this amazing innovation. How do we fund the people who need to get that funding? And we have a brilliant sovereign investment partnership between the UAE and Britain, which has led to £12 billion of investment in 2 years. So, Your Excellency, if I could just ask you as the first question, what is it about the UK that you find attractive? You've got some high-profile investments, but you also invest in clean energy, life science, other areas. When you look at all the different countries that you could invest in, why Britain?
Well, first of all, thank you, Chancellor. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today. Lovely gathering with friends and colleagues from all over the world. It's an absolute privilege to be here. I've had the privilege of being involved and investing in the UK for almost 25 years. So I've had a wonderful experience over these 25 years, investing in many different sectors, many different fields. And it's been quite an experience. I would say, maybe just to answer your question more specifically, over the last 5 years, we've been focusing really on sectors that the UK, I think, has immense strengths in. We've been investing in clean technology, the energy transition as an example. And in that space, for the last 15 years, we've been investing in wind power generation in the UK, and it's been a great platform for us. I would say today we are probably one of the largest investors of wind generation in the UK. The regulatory environment, I think, is excellent. The returns have been good, and the tariff structure has been, I would think, conducive for investment. And that's allowed us over the years to start investing here, but then continue to build up and scale up in terms of our portfolio when it comes to the energy transition space. And that's an area I hope that we will continue to grow and invest in, because it's an attractive area here in the UK. Second area I want to talk about is technology. And again, I think just to your point, Chancellor, the UK has so much to give in that area, and I think is the academic aspect from the universities, what's coming out in terms of the early stage venture in the space of technology. We all know, I think a lot of credit goes on the AI revolution to the United Kingdom. I think DeepMind is a great example, but also companies that are, I think, critical within this technology space, like ARM, have all come out of that academic university system here in the UK, and that makes it, I think, very attractive for investors like ourselves that have been focusing on investing in technology. And I think we've done very well. We've been investors in companies like ARM and others, and it's been an area that I think will continue to prosper in the UK as long as the UK government continues to support and really focus on and really address the point you mentioned, which is the early stage to scaling up. I think that's an area where there is support needed, and I think if the UK government focuses in that area, I think that'll help investors to be part of that chain, not just from early venture, but all the way to growth, and then hopefully to the mature technology level. So that's the second area. The third area that I'm very excited about and that we've been investing and spending a lot of time on is life sciences. And life sciences, again, the UK has so much to give in that area. We've been quite involved in that space, and it's been, again, very attractive to invest, very conducive, great partnerships, great companies, early, mid, mature, across the board, and I hope we can continue to do that. So I think overall, my final comment would be on digital infrastructure. That's another area that we've done a lot in fiber as an example, and I think it's another space which in the future there's a lot to see here in the UK, and we look forward to doing more in these four areas, generally speaking.
Thank you. Let me bring in Deanne Stewart. She's the Chief Executive of Aware Super, which is the third largest superannuation fund in Australia, what we would probably call a pension fund. You've opened your first overseas office in London and allocated $10 billion that you're going to be spending from your UK hub over the next 10 years. And it is very, very painful, as many of you will understand, for any Brit to have to point to something the Aussies do better. But when it comes to pension fund reform, they have actually been on a journey that we are now starting on, which has led, at least when it comes to the bigger pension funds, to improved returns. We did get more gold medals than you in the Olympics when I was responsible for the Olympics. I have to remind you of that before you start telling us how brilliant things are down under. But just tell us how it's worked in Australia and what we can learn and how that can help deliver that vision that we have of being the world's next Silicon Valley.
Well, thank you, Chancellor, and it's an absolute privilege to be here. It's just been an incredible day meeting so many people, so a huge thank you for the invitation. Before I begin, should I start with cricket? Is that...
I think we can gloss over that.
No, go straight to the pension system? Okay, right, okay.
Some of us don't even know what it is.
Oh. Later, Jamie. It takes 5 days. So I guess to give you context, the Australian pension system has been the fastest growing pension system in the world. And really where it began, the system as we know it today, began 30 years ago, where they brought in several really core components that's given it that growth. And to give you an order of magnitude, 30 years ago, 150 billion. Today, 3.5 trillion Aussie, or around 2 trillion pounds. But that's expected to double literally by 2030 to be over 6 trillion. So it's a really fast, rapidly growing system. And there's sort of 3 core components to it. One is that it's mandated for all working Australians. And that mandate, the rate started at 3% back in 1992. Today, it's 11%, and it's going to 12% of a person's wage by 2025. So that's every working Australian. It's mandated. The second element is that it's completely preserved, so you cannot touch it until you retire. And then the third component is that it's moved completely away from defined benefit, and it's more than 90% defined contribution. So it's what you put in through that 11% going to 12%. So that is what's really created such a huge system. The last element, which has just come in the last couple of years, has been a new reform that's called Your Future, Your Super. And in that, ultimately, it's opened up to complete choice. So an working Australian can move their super and put it into any super fund, so that's made it highly competitive. But also, secondly, there's a performance test. So if you do not get the right performance to hit the benchmark, and if you're a poor performing fund, not only is that disclosed publicly in all media outlets, but if you have to write to all Australians that are in your fund and basically say, we're a poor performing fund and we need to let you know that. And if that carries on for another year, you're not allowed to accept new members into the fund. So it's created a very competitive, a very consumer-orientated and really significant piece of pension reform. So from an Aware Super perspective, we're one of the largest, and we've certainly been a huge beneficiary of that, being a top-performing fund. And so we've consolidated a lot of those funds, and that's how we've grown so rapidly. But to your private assets component, because of the uniqueness of the system, about 30% of our assets are in private assets because they're very strong performing. They typically perform as well, if not better, than the listed markets. And in that competitive environment, you want more in private. So that's how we've come to invest both in Australia, but also in UK and Europe more broadly.
And why have you chosen to open your first international office in the UK, apart from being able to gloat over the cricket?
Well, for similar reasons to His Excellency, in terms of we really do like areas of the UK in particular, but more broadly in Europe, of areas like life sciences, technology, and the depth of financial services. But also, this is our first international office, and so things like a deep capital pool, deep talent, but also, as Steve was mentioning earlier today, that really resonated with me, was that sort of cultural alignment and a really conducive tax and legal system that we're very au fait with, being common law. We were built off the British system. That was very natural as a first office for us, and we see really significant opportunity here and more broadly in Europe.
Thank you. Let me move on to Jamie Dimon, who is one of the best-known global CEOs, CEO, of course, of JP Morgan, the world's largest bank by market capitalization. They have 19,000 employees here in the UK. And I wanted to ask you, Jamie, I mean, first of all, just echoing from what we've heard from His Excellency and Deanne, how do you see the UK as an investable proposition? But secondly, you've commented often on the instability in the world at the moment. How do you prosper when you've got so many incredibly disturbing things happening in pretty much every continent?
So thank you for asking, Chancellor, and thrilled to be here. First, I look at all the things you're saying today. I'm going to take notes. I'm going to send them to the American administration. Pro-growth is good. Entrepreneur is good. Innovation is good. Strong economies are good. Strong economies pay for militaries. And we have to share the wealth with everybody. And so I don't even like the word wealth anymore because it always implies the rich getting richer as opposed to these things can lift up all of your citizens. So we deeply applaud that. We've been here for a long time, now 20,000 plus employees, and it's the rule of law, it's the talent, it's everything you already mentioned, and a source of stability to the world. Geopolitically, you heard a lot of it today. I'm just kind of on the other side of this. I think we're sitting here and nothing really bad's happened. I think it's a bad way to look at the world. We have this war in Ukraine. It's huge humanitarian crisis, nuclear blackmail. It's gone on for 2 years. We can easily be sitting here 3, 4, 5 years from now, and it's still going on. It can expand somewhere else. Bad things can happen, and it's affecting all global relationships, oil and gas. If we don't have a secure and affordable oil and gas line, CO2 will go up, poor nations will suffer, developing nations won't be able to make it, you can have more migration. It's a tough situation. It's affecting America's military alliances, its economic alliances, and most importantly, China, which you've already heard about. These things are, I hope it all goes away. And then, of course, you had the terrorist attack in Israel, and now the Israeli-Gaza war, also potentially explosive. That one will probably be resolved in a year. But you can't sit here and say that something bad may not happen. And so I put those all in the category. I'm not trying to scare people. I'm more in the category that something can go wrong. It's a dangerous cocktail mix, and therefore you should kind of be prepared. So let's all hope it goes away. Let's be prepared. I would also put in the mix a little bit, and this happy talk about America's economy. America. And it is an unbelievable economy, and it's got innovation, growth, it's got everything you want. But we are spending a lot of money, and that money is like a heroin. And of course, it's fueling. We put $5 trillion in the hands of consumers. It's now extra $1 trillion, so it's being spent down. We think sometime next year that goes away. We spent $4 trillion buying securities. We've taken back $1 trillion of that. So think of those as drugs in the system. Well, of course you feel pretty good. Of course stock markets are high and companies are earning more money. Of course that's true. If the government's spending that much more money and everyone's spending money, who profits? Businesses. Profits are made at the margin. If sales go down 5%, profits go down 15%, or whatever the number is for your business. And so I'm a little cautious in that too, that we're kind of on the sugar high. And so now I'm not saying all this ends in a depression or we could even have a soft landing. I just think more inflationary forces out there, the green economy, remilitarization of the world, restructuring of global supply, fiscal spending by governments. Fiscal spending is inflationary. I don't know what people think to think that that's not. So my view is there's a higher chance that rates stay higher, that inflation doesn't go away, and that all these things cause more problems of some sort. And so, it's my job to be prepared for stuff like that. I'm kind of an optimist, so I hate being Debbie Downer in this thing. And how do you handle it? The most important thing I think it's not just for us, but for businesses, I think personal relationships. I've known these guys for, 15 years or something like that. You want to trust your clients. You want to trust the countries need to trust us. We're there in good times and bad times. We're clients, we're there in good times and bad times. We want to be the best to you. I look at the economy as the weather. I'm really worried about this geopolitics stuff. I can't even compare those two things. We've all been through recessions. We can deal with recessions. We can't deal with the book written 40 years from now saying how the West lost. Okay? And I just wouldn't even put them in the same category. But we look at, when we sit down at our risk committees and my board, the worst outcomes by country, by region, can we handle it? And handle it to me does not mean I have to call you up and say we can't do those things we said. Handle it means to me that we have bad financial results, but we don't change hiring, investing, anything like that. Like, other than World War III, J.P. Morgan will just power through all this stuff serving you, which is more important than, do I know exactly what the economy is going to be? And so we don't share those worst case scenarios with people, but you can imagine we do it in almost every single possibility. We can't rely on any one thing or any one country. That's how we try to handle it.
Yes. I'm not quite sure if that was something to cheer us up or profoundly depress us. But all I would say is that if we're not going to be reading that book in 40 years' time about how the West lost, then we've got to make sure we don't lose on technology. Because if we stay ahead on tech...
And you guys are doing great. This issue about American leadership, it heightens my concern, and as does almost every single person I speak to out there.
Okay. Let me just bring in our fourth panelist, because one of the countries that's been very much in the public eye over recent years because of the incredible ambition of what they're trying to do to create a totally decarbonized future is Saudi Arabia. And His Excellency Yasser Al-Rumayyan is the governor of the Public Investment Fund for Saudi. They raised £8.5 billion in a green bond insurance issuance in London. And I think you're also in a region which has been totally in the spotlight recently. So I'd like to ask you the same two questions I asked Jamie. First of all, why the UK? What's the attraction of the UK? And secondly, what is the best strategy for dealing with the instability that is all around us?
So I cannot add more to the UK on why banks, businesses, investors are here. It's for, as everyone said, the rule of law. That's one. The talents and the universities that we have around the UK. And it's evident by all the new technologies like, ARM and the other companies. Also the heritage, believe it or not, it makes the difference. I mean, people like to come to London. People like to reside in London, like second homes, second businesses. So our second international office after New York was in London. Although it's taken us like 1 year to do the renovation, but it's fine. I'm not complaining. And the accessibility to the capital markets. As you said, we raised so many green funds in here, and we raised the first Centurion fund by any other organization, which makes us really see the value in coming here and having our people in here and getting connected with different investments. So we already invested in many companies like, Aston Martin, like McLaren, like even Newcastle United Football Club, as you may know, which is really one of the smallest investments, but one of the biggest impact, I would say. These are basically the reasons why people are here in the UK. And maybe I said this before. So you have London, and you have the rest of the UK. Now, maybe you want to see it equally, or maybe you want to put more weight if you are a financial investor to be only in London. But we want to move beyond that, which is an investor in even private equities. And with that, I think you can derive a lot of value because you have so many great companies. You have so many great technologies and people that you can bring in form of JVs back to your home country. And that's what we've been doing in many events. And we want to continue on doing so. So, as you said, the Public Investment Fund is becoming one of the most impactful investors in what we're doing, because we don't just go to the financial assets, but we go to see if these financial assets can be transformed into something that will bring value. And this value, of course, is going to be the IRR, the returns, it's going to be job contribution, and it's going to be the economic multiplier. So if you want to think about it from these different lenses, this is what we like to do, basically. Now, looking at the what's going on from the geopolitical, and as Jeremy said, the geopolitical started maybe even before the pandemic with the trade war, then after the pandemic with what happened in the Ukraine, and unfortunately what's happening right now in the Middle East. Of course, it's going to have a negative impact. So we have to work on sorting out these kind of problems as soon as possible, because the ripple effect of having, a drag war in the Ukraine or between Israel and Gaza is going to have a very negative impact, starting from migration, starting from terrorism and many other things that can only do one thing: stopping progress. And this is the last thing we want to do.
Thank you. I'm afraid that brings us to a close of this session. You will want to go back to discussing with your neighbour whether in a cup of tea you should put the milk in first or the tea in first, or whether the cream should be on top of the jam or the jam on top of the cream on a scone. But after that, the next topic is, are you going to be investing 1 billion, 5 billion or 10 billion into the UK economy next year? But ladies and gentlemen, could I ask you to give a big round of applause to our wonderful panel? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. That was so magnificent that you've got a job on television hosting once you've stopped being the Chancellor of the Exchequer. We're just coming towards the end of what has been a great day. What has been a great day in terms of the discussions we've all had about investment and about the global opportunities in the UK and around the world. Just to round us off, before we get to the end and our journey to Buckingham Palace, if we could just take our seats again and just stop our conversations, it would be really, really wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. I want to welcome back to the stage the Secretary of State for Business and Trade, Kemi Badenoch.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So, in politics, I've learned that some speaking slots are tougher than others. You speak after a gifted speaker, and you'll have people making comparisons. You speak before lunch, and you're standing in the way of the audience and their food. You speak after lunch, and you'll have people struggling to stay awake. But this is the toughest slot of all, because I am standing between you all and a royal reception at Buckingham Palace. So I will be brief. But the upside is that I get to close an incredible event that has confirmed what I have believed for years, and what the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, and in fact the whole of this government, have worked so hard to make a reality. Quite simply, that the United Kingdom is the best place in the world to do business. Thank you. British people are too often too modest about our own country. I don't think we're bullish enough about selling the UK strengths. Those of you who know me know that I don't have this problem. So I will spend a few minutes sharing my personal views not just on why the UK is the destination of choice for global capital, but why the future looks even better. We know that the UK that we have created is an innovator. It is open and it is pivotal to the modern world. Here are some compelling facts. 4 global top 10 universities, 89 world-class universities, more than Germany and France combined. A strong and diverse workforce, the brightest and best talent, more qualified than any major economy in Europe, flexible and liberal labour laws, Europe's most active funding market with a competitive, transparent and fair tax system, 25% corporation tax, the lowest in the G7, the most generous capital allowances in the OECD. This is why, when faced with important investment decisions, you have chosen the UK. I cannot overstate the determination of the whole of this government to secure transformative investment into our country. As the PM and the Chancellor both set out last week, we are clear what the role of government should be. We know it is not the job of government to make business succeed, it is to create the conditions for businesses to succeed. We know that if we do that, you'll do the rest. We are not afraid to admit that we will only attract the investment needed to grow the economy if we can give you the confidence that you will see a return on your investments. And it is these investments that create the prosperity, the jobs, and the revenues with which together we can build the society we all want to see. Your businesses are the engines that drive our economy, not government. More often than not, government's role should be to get out of the way and let you do what you do best. We need to listen, to understand, to enable you to make long-term investment decisions with certainty. Look carefully at what's happening in this country. A supply-side revolution is quietly underway. The government is taking on the forces holding back enterprise, and we're already winning. This highly skilled workforce is the number one thing that major investors tell me is key to their strategic decisions, and we are delivering. Education reforms over the last decade have taken us from 25th to 4th in the OECD's PISA measure, and we know that education goes beyond the classroom. We've created 12 institutes of technology across the country, working with employers such as Microsoft, Nissan, Bosch, Babcock, and Siemens. 9 more are in the pipeline. And we will support everyone who wants to work to be able to. We are removing barriers as we find them. For instance, we know that if childcare is too expensive, this can keep parents out of the workplace, your workplaces. So the Chancellor announced in March of this year the biggest ever investment in childcare in England, providing an additional £4.1 billion to reform childcare for parents, children, and boost the economy. You need the right people in the right place with the right skills. We know that better transport infrastructure and affordable housing are both vital to this. So on transport, we are investing where it is most needed, locally, better links within cities and between cities and nearby towns. We have the courage to make the right decisions for the long-term stability and prosperity of the UK. We will listen and act. Ignore the doom-laden nonsense that you may hear. The fact is, we have the 3rd fastest growth in the G7 since 2010, a faster recovery from COVID than Germany, and we remain the 2nd largest exporter of services in the world. Let's not forget that people said Nissan would leave the UK because of Brexit. As we saw on Friday, they could not have been more wrong. Thank you, Uchida-san. We are already backing your businesses with the right decisions on tax. Enterprise depends on incentives. You all know how difficult and grueling business is. We know nobody will do it if they're not going to get a fair share of the fruits of their labour. So we're committed to Britain having and producing cheap, low-carbon energy. We're attracting almost a 5th of Europe's clean tech investment. And last week, the Chancellor announced a major reform to grid connections and commercial planning. It has never been easier to build the labs and factories you need. The Chancellor made full expensing permanent last week. So if you invest in our country, you will be rewarded, not punished for it. And we are cutting national insurance so people can take home more of what they earn. Because we know work should be rewarded, and your employees know that too. So my parents told me that they didn't have favourites and we shouldn't have favourites, or at least not to tell people that you do. But I have to confess that my favourite announcement in the autumn statement was for our multi-billion-pound advanced manufacturing plan. Yes, we have an incredibly exciting services offer, but manufacturing has an equally exciting place in the future of our economy. The manufacturing sector makes up over 40% of all UK exports, employs over 2.5 million people. People forget that we are the 8th largest manufacturing nation in the world, as I said this morning, overtaking France in 2021. And this funding will crowd in real private investments to propel our world-leading manufacturing into their exciting future. So if you want a government whose approach to business is subsidies and bailouts, then we might not be for you. But if you want a government that listens, a government that has the courage to remove barriers to business, and a government that backs winners, then that is us. And there is another reason why investing here makes so much sense. Invest in the UK and get the globe. We've signed new trade deals with Australia, New Zealand, 7 US states, and CPTPP, with many more on the way. The UK is more invested in the global economy than almost anywhere else. We are more open, more liberal, and London is one of the world's only truly global cities. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your contributions to this summit. Thank you for your investment. And thank you for being partners in making Britain the best place in the world to do business.
Thank you so much, Secretary of State. That's it for this part of the Global Investment Summit 2023. Do please listen out for those coach numbers, and if anyone hasn't collected their invitation to the Palace reception, make sure you do, because we wouldn't want you standing outside Buckingham Palace in the pouring rain, not able to get in. Thank you so much for attending, and farewell.